Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It finishes their discussion on The Two Towers. Hey everyone, welcome back to Welcome It. Welcome back to Booking It. I'm, of course, your humble and eloquent host, Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today is my good friend, Isaiah Radetzky. How you doing, Isaiah?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. It's the first time we've had the Cooper and Isaiah show.
No, it's Isaiah and Cooper show.
Yeah, it's true. But we better not start an everlasting feud of whether it's the Isaiah and Cooper show or the Cooper and Isaiah show. I think we're better than that, right?
Maybe. Depends what you say it is.
It's true. I'm just going to say, me and Isaiah here, we're talking about the Two Towers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, let's have some fun banter. So, Isaiah, how you doing?
Doing good. I mean, glad to be back. I missed a couple recordings.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both got back, or we both are working our respective jobs now. Isaiah's making some hard-earned cash, working for his dad, putting some floors down. And I am working for the very esteemed employer, Chick-fil-A.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You get free food?
Yeah, well, it depends really. So, yeah, I get free food every shift. But if they call it CEM score, it's basically how well we've been doing based on our customer review survey thingamabob. And if our CEM scores are above 80% positive, then yes, I get free food. But if it's below 80%, then all of us, we get 50% off. So, yeah.
Dude, that's pretty cool. They get free food or at least some percentage off. I mean, it's Chick-fil-A.
It is Chick-fil-A. That's true. But with my sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, processed-free, everything-free, life-free diet, can't have much besides the grilled nuggets. But hey, grilled nuggets are nothing. You know what else is not nothing? Book 4 of the Two Towers, or Book 4 of Lord of the Rings.
Well, technically it's part 2 of Book 2. But you know.
No, it's Book 2 of Part 2 of Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I know. Remember, it's weird. Remember, we have all the Lord of the Rings divided into 6 books in 3 parts.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Right.
Anyway, talking about the second half of Two Towers. In case anybody is confused. And this is also known as the Frodo and Sam book. So we've spent the first part of the Two Towers with Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, and the men. We've got Helm's Deep. We've got Saruman. We've got the Battle of Isengard. We've got the Ents. We've got Merry and Pippin. So I guess you weren't on last episode, so any deep inspirational thoughts on the Two Towers Part 1?
Well, I mean, it's got my favorite part in it, the Battle of Helm's Deep.
That's right. I say it's a big Helm's Deep guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how they do it in the book isn't the best. It's still good, but I prefer, obviously, the movie because you can actually see it. But, and the Battle of Helm's Deep is amazing.
Yeah, we talked about how Tolkien's not a big fan of the battles. But
yeah. I mean, and Tolkien wouldn't add, an elf surfing on a shield down some stairs shooting some orcs.
No. I mean, Helm's Deep, yeah, but he wouldn't have done that. But anyway, would you say that because of Helm's Deep, it's still your favorite, book of Lord of the Rings? Again, the individual book and not the Two Towers?
Yeah, I probably would.
Mm-hmm.
I like that battle a lot, and then just the whole thing with them, with, Legolas, or with Aragorn, Gimli, all that.
Yeah. And so what's interesting is I've been watching, we talked off mic a little bit beforehand, I've been watching the movies again. Not an extended edition, in case anybody was wondering. But I started the Two Towers the other day, And honestly, I was kind of disappointed that because the Two Towers is broken up into, you have the first part is the men, and the second part is just Frodo and Sam.
And Pippin and
Pippin and Merry in the first book. You're
Pippin
right,
and Merry,
but mainly it's the men and Gimli and Legolas. And what's interesting is the structure is it's completely separate, and the movies they kind of overlap them, right?
Yeah, I noticed that too.
I mean, if you're making a movie, you have to do that. Honestly, like there's no way you would probably roll with this structure in a movie. But anyway, what's interesting is you really don't want to be with Frodo and Sam in the movies. It's kind of obvious that Peter Jackson wants you to be with the men. I mean, one of the reasons that he probably took up Lord of the Rings was because of Helm's Deep. He loves the battles, right? He loves everything. He loves Aragorn cutting off orc heads and stuff like that. And so his heart really isn't with Frodo and Sam. But what's interesting is in the Two Towers, it seems like Tolkien much more a fan of Frodo and Sam than he is with the other part, no matter how good Helm's Deep and the first part of Two Towers may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like how it is in the book, or in the book it's good too how it is, but I prefer it like where it goes like every chapter or two it swaps. That would be better in my opinion, because another reason why this one is the part 1 of book 2 or book 3 of part 2 or whatever you call it. Is my favorite, because that one is more, like you said, like fighting or action stuff, and it's not more detail where it's just them talking or on a journey.
Right.
Like part 2 is with Frodo and Sam, or Frodo, Sam, and Gollum.
Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting. So obviously the structure is unique, like we've talked about. But do you think that Tolkien did that for a reason, or do you think he was just too lazy? What do you think Tolkien's reasoning was behind dividing the Two Towers up into two different parts, really?
Like
two
probably
different, not like two different books, but like two different, focuses, focal points.
I know what you mean. Yeah, probably so he doesn't have to like split it up and like break it off at certain points, like other books do, where they leave you in like a cliffhanger or wondering what happens next. He probably just wanted to keep it all in one big story, so that he didn't have to worry about ending a chapter. So it's not like a weird ending; it's still a good ending, and then it goes on to a different story completely, different characters. Probably something like that, or...
but you think he was just he didn't want to worry about having to alternate between the two storylines?
Yeah, probably that. Or also another thing could be is for the readers, for them to remember the stuff that's happening, not like just to think about the one chapter that they're reading and then forget what the story was before about Frodo and Sam, and they're only thinking about Legolas and Aragorn and all that.
I can see why. I agree. You're like... about to get on the verge of Helm's Deep, and then suddenly you hear about Frodo and Sam and Gollum meeting Faramir, on the other side, and have to go back and forth. So I can see why he would have done that. Just, it is an interesting choice.
Yeah, but for like a movie, since we talked about the movie a little bit, for like a movie, it's better to do it that way because you don't get them bored for the second half of just them traveling.
Right. It is narratively, it wouldn't work for a movie. Yeah. Unless you were doing like part 1, part 2, but I think it doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So also we get the first kind of real upfront view of Gollum here. So do you think that Gollum is better in The Hobbit, or you like him better in Lord of the Rings?
I don't know. I think that. Well, I guess I'd like him better more in Lord of the Rings because you see him more there.
Yeah, you kind of get...
in The Hobbit, it's not that much. But then in The Hobbit, you also have the whole Riddles in the Dark thing.
Yeah, Riddles in the Dark is pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Although
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can go.
No, you can go. Okay. But also, in Lord of the Rings, you get more of a kind of in-depth view of what his psychology is, or what his reasoning is. In The Hobbit, he's really just this creature who has a precious, and then he and Bilbo have the awesome game of Riddles in the Dark, which is great. In Lord of the Rings, you get more of the character development. You get more of Tolkien really fleshing him out as a real character and as a real player in Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in Lord of the Rings, you actually learn like his whole backstory and all that.
Right.
And then I like you said, you get to see him more and basically just see his personality and I guess like his struggles with the Precious and all that, or his Precious, or whatever the heck you want to call it.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's definitely a good metaphor, just for how like sometimes addictions can kind of just wear on us. You know,
Or
just
can consume you or something.
right, consume you exactly. It's really just a good picture of how Y'all is becoming obsessed with this destructive thing, and he doesn't care how destructive it is. He needs it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what a great, unique character that Tolkien came up with, you know. I mean, Tolkien came up with a lot of unique things, but Gollum was among his most unique and I think most well thought out.
Yeah, although I do think it's funny how they capture him. Like, if you watch the movie first or whatever, in the movie they actually like know he's following them.
Right. Well, they do that in the book some too.
They do, but in the movie they actually wait for him. Like they trap him and then capture him.
Yes.
In the book, he's climbing down a cliff and falls, and then it startles them and they jump on him. Which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I just watched that scene in the movie too. Yeah. Oh, speaking of, I know we're making a lot of movie comparisons, but I'm sorry, guys. But did you like Andy Serkis's Gollum, or have you probably just picture Andy Serkis's Gollum?
Yeah, that's all I can picture.
Yeah.
Well, I did read the books first before I watched the movie.
Right.
And whenever I read the books, I pictured something like that, but not exactly like that. I don't remember exactly because it was like 5-6 years ago. But I know it was similar to him, but not like how he is in there. Although I do like how Andy Serkis played him.
Yeah, I think that all the dialogue is great. And all of the kind of, and even the two personalities, what do you call them, Slinker and Stinker? How that's quite obvious in there.
Yeah, it was really good. And then this whole, like, however the heck he said my precious in, like, a weird, creepy voice.
Yeah. Everybody likes to make fun of that, but come on. Next up, we have Faramir, Boromir's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you kind of like the polar opposites between Boromir and Faramir? Did you see what Tolkien was kind of getting at here, or are you just like, not the character?
I mean, I kind of saw it. I didn't really, like, pay attention to it that much. But, it was just kind of, like, weird and cool to see how, like, they both, how he had it where, like you said, they were polar opposites.
Right.
Basically. And that, I mean, I'm not saying anything about this, like, or whatever, but I think he should have been chosen instead of Boromir for the whole thing.
Right, that's kind of the whole
whatever
thing. I mean, and I've been reading, Return of the King, and I'm really excited to talk about Denethor and his whole relationship with Boromir and Faramir, because Denethor really loved Boromir more because Boromir was like him. They were both kind of proud. They both thought the ring should be used, I guess, for Gondor and all that kind of stuff. He just didn't value Faramir as much. And he's like, Faramir should have gone instead of Boromir. Like, he literally said that. But Faramir, I really like the character of Faramir this time around. I didn't remember much about what he was like. And I come in and I realized, he's just such a, like, chivalrous knight. He's polite, he's courteous. He's like, I would never have taken the ring, Frodo, even though I knew what you were doing.
Yeah, well, for me, whenever I came into reading this my second or third time, I can't remember, just now for the podcast, I remembered him as how it was in the movies, where he's, like, also wanted to take the ring and all that. And
he's a jerk in the movies.
Basically, like his brother.
Right.
Trying to take the ring and it consuming him. And then whenever I read it, I was like, wow, he's so much different.
Yeah, for sure.
It was shocking.
Yeah. I think he's actually, we talked about a little bit, I guess you weren't there, but in our Fellowship of the Ring Part 2, and then you haven't edited it yet, but Two Towers Part 1 discussion about character development. Now there's nothing to really separate the characters. Well, Faramir is kind of a little bit separate from all of the other characters, because in a way, he's more chivalrous, he's more, knightly and all of that kind of stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit more about his, character development next time in Return of the King, too, as well.
Yeah. For him, basically think of, like, a knight from a long time ago, like, a knight in shining armor, all that, and all the traits of them, and that's basically him.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, chivalrous and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And then next up, we get arguably the best spot in Lord of the Rings. And since we're kind of running, we have a lot of time, I mean, let's talk about it. So, part I'm talking about is the scene with Shelob and Frodo and Sam. And what do you call it, Cirith Ungol or something like that. This has always been my favorite part of Lord of the Rings. And I know you're a big Helm's Deep guy, but I think this is better.
Well, I mean, it's good. In my opinion, it's not as good as Helm's Deep, but it's still really good.
Yeah, so here's my thing about that. We both agree Tolkien's great at suspense. He's great to stuff leading up to the battle, right? Like in Fellowship especially, all the like the stuff with, oh no, they can't get through the pass at Caradhras. Oh no, Saruman's spies are watching them. Oh no, Gandalf is afraid to go into Moria. All of that is building and building, and finally the Balrog comes, and it's like a page. And then in Two Towers, we got this entire, almost half of the book leading up to Helm's Deep, and then, I agree, Helm's Deep is awesome, and whatever, but Tolkien's heart just isn't in writing Helm's Deep. It's just not as epic as it could have been, right? And we talked about it in our Hobbit discussion as well, how this entire, well, I guess it's not really the point of the book, but at the very end of the book, there's this epic battle between the 5 armies, and it's literally 5 pages, and all of it is recount. It's not even 5 pages, even. It's like recounted.
Yeah, it's not even,
later. So my point is, this stuff with suspense and even horror almost is what Tolkien does best with Shelob and stuff like that. And so it plays more to his strength. And there's like a small skirmish, but it wasn't big, and grand and stuff. But it's Frodo and Sam fighting Shelob, this darkness. It was there like before time, even. Just them fighting that. I always thought was really cool, and it played right into Tolkien's strengths.
Yeah, that scene's really good. It's definitely up there for like some of the best scenes. I'm also doing this like from movie and book, like combining the scenes and then rating it that way.
Yeah,
how it is in the movies and the books.
Don't they put this scene into Return of the King in the movies?
Yeah, in the movies it's like later on in Return of the King, like probably 30-40 minutes in, I think.
Gosh.
Yeah, I know. Well, this also shocked me when I was reading this too. I'm like, wait, that's in this book?
Yeah.
Like, I was so confused.
I
haven't read the books in a while, so
those movies. I'm saying
probably, but there is so much stuff that they got to put in.
Yeah.
I think the only way to do it and actually make it more close and accurate to the book is to do part 1 and part 2 for each.
Yeah.
Basically, how it is in the actual book. Except maybe for Two Towers, not do it where it's the first part is like with Aragorn and all that, and the second part is with Frodo and Sam.
But also, just the audacity of Tolkien to leave it on a cliffhanger as well. Like, I remember reading it for the first time and being shocked. It's one.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Loyal Sam is rushing after Frodo, who we just discovered wasn't dead after all. And then the door is closed behind him, and everything seems so hopeless.
Yeah, and then doesn't Return of the King like start like this part where it goes back to Frodo and Sam is like a chapter or 2 in it, like into the book,
actually,
or does it start right away?
Part 1 of Return of the King is Merry and Pippin and Legolas and Gimli
and Aragorn, you're right.
and Gondor and Rohan.
And then the final part
is exactly the last couple chapters, yeah. And we talked about it again. People, it's obvious, I think, that Tolkien, no matter how epic you think Helm's Deep is, cares more about Frodo and Sam than he does everybody else. And then imagine all the people who are reading it and really like this section with Frodo and Sam and Shelob, and then they have to wait another 6 months or a year, however long it was, for Return of the King to come out. And then they're like, well, I have to read through. Arguably, I think it's the worst book. Is book 5, the first part, of Return of the King. They have to slog through that, and then finally make it to Frodo and Sam in the end, which is stupid. But I want to talk a little bit more about Shelob. So this entire Lord of the Rings discussion, we've been talking about how deep Tolkien's world is and how he just throw things in there because he had like created a whole backstory for them, and he just had to put them in his story. This whole story is all about one of the many, many storylines in Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien just used it to throw all the stuff about his world he could in there. And so I love the description here. Let me see if I can try and find it, of Shelob. And she's described, and for those of you who don't know, Shelob is like the giant spider, or actually he just says he's in the form of a spider. But just the fact that she's like this darkness before time. Here, let me try and find that in Isaiah. You keep everybody occupied. All right.
One thing that did shock me with this whole like Shelob or giant spider or whatever is that they've never mentioned it before, like in The Hobbit or anything like that. At least not that I remember, where they mentioned a giant spider, or like if the army of Mordor had the giant spiders, it probably could have helped them a lot more. Just having giant spiders attack.
True.
Besides, like in The Hobbit, at one point, whenever they get captured by them, but that's like in the Mirkwood, not by Mordor or anything.
And what's funny is you would think that a character this big, like there's been no foreshadowing of this at all. Tolkien at the end is like she went into the dark to nurse her wounds, and then she came back to full strength. That's not part of this tale, and you're like, bruh, like this was one of the most awesome scenes in the book, and this character's like going away, but it's just Tolkien's world is so big that he like has to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely think it would have been pretty cool though if Tolkien would have put more stuff about Shelob or explaining it or something like that, like at least a small backstory to it. The movies kind of do a backstory, at least to giant spiders, like in The Hobbit, with The Hobbit, whenever they go to that castle that's technically not at all in the books, and they find and fight Sauron there, but they talk about how the spiders are just made by Sauron or something like that. But in the books, they don't really say anything about how they're made. So, or like not how they're made or where they came from, I meant, but... Awkward silence.
Okay, I found it. Okay, so this first part is, there, age-long, she had dwelt, an evil thing in spider form. Even such as once of old had lived in the land of the elves in the west, that is now... that is now under the sea. Such as Barand fought in the mountains of Terra and Doriath, and so came to Luthien upon the green sward amid the hemlocks in the moonlight long ago. How Shelob came there, flying from ruin, no tale tells. For out of the dark years few tales have come. But still she was there, who was before Sauron, and before the first stone of Barad-dûr. She had served none but herself, drinking the blood of elves and men, bloated and grown far with endless brooding on her feasts, weaving webs of shadow, for all living things were her food, and her vomit darkness. But none could rival her. Shelob the Great, the last child of Ungoliant to trouble the unhappy world. Yeah, and that's just... And so I just love the fact that Tolkien just added this spider to his world, and then just threw him in there for kind of a plot point. And then after, Frodo and Sam and Gollum had their battle with Shelob or whatever, and then she goes away, Tolkien's like, and that story is not part of this tale. And there's just so much to Tolkien's world that everything could be part of the tale, and yet it's not. And so I just thought Shelob was really cool for that reason. But it's also a great scene with Frodo and Sam and Gollum.
Yeah, well, Tolkien does have a lot of other books, though, that, like, explain characters. Like, I'm pretty sure there's one book that literally just talks about every character in Lord of the Rings, or thing in Lord of the Rings, and where they're from, or their history, or something
honestly,
like that. So,
I will read those one day. And if we're still doing the podcast, when I read them, I will do a review.
Yeah, you and Tanner can do that.
Of all of those books.
Because apparently he's read them all.
Yes, exactly.
Or at least a lot of them.
I don't know. All right, any final thoughts on Part 2 of The Two Towers, also known as Book 4 of Part 2 of Lord of the Rings?
That's a lot of parts. But no.
A lot of parts?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, let's do some donor shout-outs. I will say the donor, and then you will say whether this person is an elf or an orc.
Ooh.
All right?
I have the power.
Nana.
Let's go with elf.
And Papi and Wayla.
Sorry, guys, but orc.
Your grandparents. By the way, what are their names again?
My grandparents, Mike and Sylvia.
Mike and Sylvia. Mike and Sylvia, your grandparents.
Let's go with elves.
Nice. And your parents, Mr. Mike and Miss Laura?
Let's go with elves.
You're considering orcs, and you're like, actually, they control my life. No. Your Uncle Sebi.
Orc.
Your aunt and uncle, Aunt Jenny and Uncle Sam.
Orc.
Your cousin Moses.
Orc.
His sister Zara.
Elf.
Oh, that's cute. Chris.
Elf.
And our new patron, Anna.
Also an elf.
That's nice. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Sorry that was a shorter episode. We'll be back, hopefully, with all four of us on Return of the King Part 1. And please, if you can't... Oh, also, if you want to donate, go to Patreon. And, of course, you want to donate. Go to patreon.com/bookinit. The link is in the description below. And if you can't donate for whatever reason, maybe you don't want to. I don't know why you do that. But go down and rate and review us, please. 5 stars, obviously. And also, we have a movie podcast called The Screening, and we're doing Star Wars right now,
yeah.
which is really awesome. And Isaiah, I guess you get to say it this time. Until next time.
Keep on booking it.